Alright, okay, welcome back. So now just to wrap things up for today's session. Okay, now we just finished recording the vocals. I'm going to show you and just talk a little bit about vocal editing and vocal pitch correction lah. One thing that's very, very important with auto-tune or any kind of editing and pitch correction, you need to originally start with a good performance. You need to have a very, very good performance in the first place, all right? Because if it's very bad in the first place, right? Even though how much processing you put or, or how much editing you do, sometimes it's not going to give you a very good quality when your end result lah, okay? So you always want to try and get the best quality, the best take that you can from the performer, from the musician or the singer, right? So when you have something that's good, then you can make it better, you see, then you can improve it. You always say lah, right? In English, they will call it, we polish the turd. It's still going to be poop, right? But at least it's shiny, right? Become a shiny poop, okay? So we don't want to, we try not to that kind of situation lah. Of course, sometimes there may be projects where you are dealing with, let's say, maybe some people have their own private or personal projects. They want to sing and all that, but then you have no choice lah. You have to try to make it sound passable lah, good lah, okay? So that really depends on your skill. So I'm gonna go, all right, and sort of show you very, very quickly how I'm going to approach the vocal editing. Right, obviously I'm doing this inside Cubase. Various DAWs may have their own methods or their own plugins. A very famous and a very, very well-known third-party plugin nowadays, besides Auto-Tune. Auto-Tune is the one that everyone is famous, right? So much so we always call it Auto-Tune nowadays, but although Auto-Tune actually belongs to the company lah, Antares lah, that makes it. Okay, so I showed you just now I was using Waves. They call it Waves Tune, right? So they have their own plugins. Steinberg Cubase also has their own built-in. They have a stock one that's built in as well, but it's not really good. It's okay lah. It's okay, but it's definitely not as good as having an auto tune or something like that. I'm going to show you a very powerful feature that Cubase has, and that is called VariAudio. Most DAWs also have something like that. Logic has something that's called flex time. I think the different DAWs, right, also have something like that, where you can do pitch correction, where you can do a little bit of editing. But VariAudio is a combination of not just editing the pitch, but also things like time stretching, time warping, and all that. And it's very, very powerful. You can use it to do a lot of good things. Okay, so let's start with this vocal. Now, so this is the original vocal take that is already kind of comped already. Now, because you have so many takes, right? If you are not sure, all right, if you are afraid of, let's say, you edit something wrongly, or maybe comes a time later down the line, right? When it's mixed already, the band gets back to you and say, hey, this line not nice lah, or you realize later on, oh, this section, this one word is not nice. Then at least you still have the original. So I'm not going to throw this away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show towards in the verse only lah. If I have to edit the whole vocal, that one will take like another 4 or 5 hours lah. Kita will be sitting here doing that. This kind of thing I'll do later back in the studio lah. And so professionally, this is how they do it. All right, they do it manually. So let me show you. So first one, okay, let's duplicate first. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to call this lead voc unused. Okay. Or you can say Ola, whichever you want, okay? So it's just to make sure you keep track, you always have a safety. Okay, let's mute this. Disable the track. So when I disable, it will disable the plugins as well, so it won't take up the CPU. Okay, you can always hide it somewhere. Okay, let's hide it at the top. Let's hide it up here. We're not going to use it already, okay? Okay. Then from here, then we can, right? We can sort of throw away all the unused clips lah. Okay, let's throw this away. Okay, be very careful not to accidentally delete anything. Let's throw all this away. Okay. This one and this one. Throw. Same chorus. Let's throw all this away. Right. So of course, hopefully this is at this stage already, you already decided and you already comped, like in this situation, I already comped what I think is the best take out of it. Some producers, you can always do this later if you want, but if I am recording, right, I would always prefer to do it when I still have the vocalist around. So that's why just now, right, I do one section, then I comp it. I ask you to take a break first. Because for me, it's worrying if, let's say, if you just do all the takes, right, if you're lucky, you can get a good comp, in the end, you can get a good result out of it. But if after you're going through all the takes, you still find that, alamak, some parts are not good enough, what are you going to do? You have to call and come back. We need to do another recording session to come back to redo again. And if you are hiring a studio, that's more cost lah. You need to, book the studio again. Who knows? Maybe just one line only, right? You have to book the studio, right? And just to record that, okay? So it will be a waste of time for everyone. So better to just get it done in one session lah. Okay, let's clean up the lanes, clean up the tracks. Okay, why this is not going? Because this is a stray one. Okay, cool. Clean up the lanes so that we have only one single track like that. Easier to deal with. So a couple of things. First of all these editing and pitch correction, I will usually do it at the same time. I don't separate it. I don't say, editing first, then pitch correction later. I rather do it together at one go, right? Just to make sure everything is there. So what sort of editing am I going to do? I'm going to do things like, check to make sure any kind of noises, any kind of, lip sounds, okay? Maybe sometimes all this kind of sounds, or maybe you get a click, right? So different vocalists, because on the shape of their mouth, or maybe they're not moisturized enough, mouth is too dry, then sometimes you get those kind of sounds. Those things you have to try to remove and clean it up and then things such as maybe breathing, right? As I mentioned earlier, right, sometimes the breathing needs to be edited carefully. So especially in the case where we are composing and compositing the tracks from different takes, it's very careful. I find this very often. Sometimes it happens. What happens is that the breathing is not let's find a spot. I think in the chorus will be a little bit more obvious because he's breathing a little bit harder. Okay, so here for example, will make its way in time. Okay, right here. Let me turn off the effects first. Let's mute the effects. I play this section. Okay. Pay attention to the breathing. Can you hear something? You can hear there's two breaths though. Let me zoom in. I'll zoom in for you. See, there's two breaths from two different takes. This is from one take, this is from another take. So what you get is it's totally unnatural. You don't get that kind of, it's like a kind of a breathing sound. So sometimes, very often, this happens. And even though you crossfade, all right, even though you do a crossfade, it's still there, right? Because it's from two different takes. We'll make its way in time, I promise. You hear the kind of sound. I will make its way inside. See here, you got a little bit of that lip noise. You can see so here it's got the click. We'll make its way inside. Okay, so we need to be very careful with this kind of thing. I will want to make sure that I'm only taking the breath from one take lah. Right. Here's one thing I want to show you. Okay, so you can always snap your cursor, right? The cursor, you can always snap to what we call the grid. So snapping here means that, snap on and off, means that whenever you snap, it will always See, it will always snap to the grid. Personally, when I'm editing, most of the time I always have this turned on. Okay, and there's a reason why I want to do that. Okay, first of all, let's say for example, katakanlah, let's say I want to copy and paste the chorus. So just now, okay, when I copied this chorus over, okay, so let's say I did not snap this to a grid. Okay, now this is exactly landing on the right bar 43, beat 4. Okay, it's landing exactly on the grid lah. Now, if I didn't have this on the grid, and I try to copy and paste it over, I have no reference to where exactly I should lock it. Then I have to use my ear. But if I have trimmed it to the grid, in this case, okay, so exactly here, 43.4. So I know that when I move it, okay, visually also you can see the number, that the counter on the number next to the cursor. Now it's showing 42, means I moved it 42 bars to the right. So this is going to be 40 bars, okay? So now it's like 40.0006, okay, 60. So this one, that's okay. That's never mind. That's all right. Zoom in. So I know if I'm on the grid, I pull it here, it'll always be perfectly smack on the right spot every time. So that's kind of my rationale why I prefer to edit, right? And whatever clips and all that, I do it based on the grid lah. Whenever I'm editing the vocals, we also want to take a look. I also want you to take a look at the type of grid I'm using. So in this case, I'm using the quantize, and then to the type of note value. So this is 32nd note. You have different settings. So for example, whole note means like one whole note lah. Okay, so this is a little bit of music theory. So whole note will be, it will snap to, you see, from 19 to 20 to 21. It snaps to one bar lah, each bar. So I can go on to half note. Half note will be here. Okay. Quarter note will be every beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then so on and so forth lah. You will subdivide all the way to 8 notes, 16 notes, 32nd notes. So 32nd notes for me is kind of is good enough. I usually start there, so it allows me to be very, very tight, so I can clean and do edits very, very tightly and very, very cleanly. So let's start with this first verse. Now, when I do with vocals, I actually go even more detail. I go all the way maximum to 128. Okay, so let's start with this. Let's solo this. Okay, all right. So it's a bit of lip noise here. You will actually see, when you zoom in the waveform, you can hear this when he's opening his mouth. So again, it depends on your style. If you listen and you feel it's okay, you leave it in. But generally speaking, it's up to you lah. I would cut it out, but I leave the breath in. So I do a little fade in. The cigarettes you light up burn. Okay, see here again, it's two different breaths. Okay, so let's do this. Let's fade this out, and we hang on a second. There's one clip hiding here. Okay, and let's do a little fade in here. Actually, this one is very hard to hear, very quiet. Burn the skies you fight for. Okay, the you fight for. Okay. Okay, this is fine. Crossfade. You fight for in the skies you fight for is there. Okay. Do you hear that breathing just now? You know, that kind of thing. You might be very careful of these things kind of happening, right? So turn this over, crossfade this out, and then fade this breath in. Yeah. There nothing left to draw? Is there nothing left to draw? Okay, here also dangerous. The T sound, there's a bit of double sound there. So maybe we should pull this back here. Let's see here. Okay. Because the word is left to drown.
Left to drown.
Okay.
Left to drown.
Okay, right. Okay. So at least the T, the consonant sound, you don't hear double. You don't hear you hear to drown. Okay.
Left to drown. Oh.
Okay, all right. Same here, right? This breathing from this take and then to this take, it doesn't match. So pull this back, fade out, fade in. Okay. Obviously, all this thing you do, right, when you're all alone lah, in the middle of the night. Usually I do all these edits whenever I know after recording or time where where you're tired already, because at least this one you are not mixing, you see. Your ears don't need to be fresh because this is more of technical work to do. If you're mixing, if you're tired, you cannot mix, right? You need to have very, very fresh ears. But if you're tired, you can still do all these kind of things lah, right?
Oh,
Okay. This one is not, it sounds okay, but again, to be safe, let's do this lah. Okay, this one here.
vacant streets in your eyes fill.
Yeah, okay, you can hear that. All right, same thing.
Fill the nights with bright lights.
Okay.
Bright lights.
Okay, here is a little bit, there was a crossfade, but let me switch it to a different type of fade. Now, crossfades, you can always play with different type of curve. So for example, we can always have maybe this type of shape. So you fade out like that and you fade in. Or you can always do linear, right, which is the default. You can always do like, this is called -3 dB. This is more a logarithmic kind of curve. You depend on which one sounds smoother to you lah, okay? But usually, I think for 90% of the time, a linear one will work. So there's two things, right? You have number one, either equal gain. So what's equal gain? Equal gain means that when this is going down by 1 dB, right? This one is fading in by 1 dB lah. But there's a different one that's called equal power. Our hearing not only is the frequency not linear, but when we hear the sound, right? When we hear level also is also not linear. So equal power, as you can see, is actually a slight curve like that. Okay, so there's difference. If I do an equal gain, right? If I do an equal gain, you try to listen and see, okay, whether you can hear it or not. If you can't, it's okay. That's fine.
With bright light. With bright light.
Can you hear that there's a bit of a bright light, a bit of a volume drop a bit, right? If you can't, it's fine. It's not a way. I just want to point out, in between the bright lights, there's a bit of a volume drop.
With bright light.
Okay, so when you solo it, you can hear a little bit. Let's try to get rid of that, okay? So the other way you can do is to use maybe an equal power curve. So equal power is more accurate to the way human hearing hears, okay? So this one should sound smoother, okay? It should sound smoother. You don't hear a bit of a dip in the volume.
The nights with bright lights.
Smoother, right? So you don't hear the volume drop, right? It sounds flat. The level sounds a bit flatter, okay? So this is always situation lah. You see with situation. Sometimes this is going to be better. Sometimes that will be better. Most of the time when I'm recording, editing for any of the other instruments, I use the equal gain. It's fine. But when it comes to things like vocals, you want it to really, really sound very smooth. You see, when you're editing these things. Okay, let's go on.
And moments filled with city sounds.
Okay, right. Now, another useful thing of editing also, you can also use this to de-ess. So for example, all these sounds, okay, you can always cut this clip and you can always clip it down if you want. So instead of using a de-esser, you can always manually edit this thing. For me, I maybe just do a fade out because it will also work lah, okay? Okay, this breath is too short. Let's keep it here. Again, depends on style, right? There are some music styles where they like to hear the breathing And then there are some mixing styles, some vocal styles where, wow, you hear like the vocal is, and the breathing is super, super loud, right? Okay, it depends on the style. Then there's some styles where they don't want the breathing to be too loud. They want it to be a little bit soft, more control. Maybe the pop ballads and all those kind of stuff lah. That one you can control a little bit lah. When it's more rock and it is more aggressive, more raw, yeah, they want to hear everything upfront, the breathing, all that. Wow, it's like pedas, it's like something spicy, that kind of thing.
All I can say is you've got nothing to lose, so run away. Will you
Okay, here don't need to edit because this was done from one take, right? So it's natural.
carry on for me?
Okay. Okay, you can sort of hear the. So this one, all this low frequency stuff, this is actually some of the leakage lah. We can always, because this one I just zoom in already, so that's why it looks like it's so big. The wave actually it's not. Okay, so you can actually. So zoom in is just to make it easier to see only. It's not that it's not that the waveform is distorted. Okay, sometimes people say this, wow, you distort you are distorting the vocal. No, it's because the waveform is zoomed in. Okay, so that is the verse. That's the kind of editing that I do lah, right? Lip noises or whatever unwanted noises, breathing, all these things you need to clean up. Okay, you have to sort of clean this up. So that's the editing part. Now let's go to the pitch correction. Okay, so first thing I want to do, let's turn off the waves tune. Okay, let's turn it off. Okay, bypass it, or okay, because there's automation, let's switch it off totally. All right, so I'm going to go into VariAudio. So earlier on I mentioned, right, there's another one where it's very, very famous third-party pitch correction software. It's called Melodyne. You guys heard of Melodyne, right? So Melodyne is also another very popular one. Also very, very powerful software, but it's a third-party thing. So it's a bit inconvenient because you need to load it separately, right? You need to load it separately. You need to load the file of it separately and process it that way. But it's actually very, very powerful lah. Okay. But what I love, I'm going to show you what I have, what Cubase has, and which is the VariAudio. So VariAudio is already integrated. It's already built into Cubase. So it's fantastic. Okay. And I personally think it's probably one of the best sounding. Best sounding here means that it's very transparent. You don't hear the artifacts. Because if you run it through WaveTune, you run it to Auto-Tune, right? You can actually hear the artifacts, right? If you, with experience, you can actually hear when, hey, this vocal sounds like it's been processed through an Auto-Tune plugin. So let's do it manually. All right, so how do we do? Let's select, let's say, this clip, right? Let's work one by one lah, okay? You can also, like, say, maybe a longer clip, you can also do that. But, just to make it easier, right? I already edited this. So you don't get like so much information, you see. Let's just do one. Double click. So double clicking will open up the sample editor. Let me just put this up, right? Full screen for you. So there are a lot of things that you can do. There's things like you can define the range, okay? You can define the hit points. You can define audio warp. But what I want to show you and bring your attention, and just going to talk about, is this one called VariAudio. Okay, so very simple, right? I already selected that segment. Okay, let me zoom it in here. This event here, this range lah. So what we do is, right, go into edit VariAudio. So what it does, when you click on it, it will start analyzing, right? And pop, this gives you the result, okay, of VariAudio. Okay, so this is like Photoshop for vocals, okay? Okay, there are a couple of things, right? There's your pitch snap mode, absolute, relative, okay? By default, is set to absolute lah, okay? And you have some controls such as quantize pitch, straighten the curve, shift the formant, and volume, okay? These are a couple of things. So what the analysis does, it gives you the pitch analysis of the vocal or whatever the audio is lah, if it is an instrument or something like that. Obviously, if you try to analyze a drum thing, it's not going to give you a clear result lah. It's going to give you a weird output lah, because the drum doesn't have a very clear defined pitch, you see. So this is the vocal, okay? So let's listen to this one line.
The cigarettes you light up.
Okay, so da 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 da. Okay, C sharp, like D flat C. Okay, so it gives you an analysis of this. Bear in mind this one, the waves tune, the auto tune is already turned off. So this one is no tuning whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is, okay, now it's already smart tool. So wherever I move, it will automatically change to the scissor tool. Split here. Let's split this. Cigarettes, okay, about here. Cigarettes, okay. Let me go and change the playback DAW so that you will hear it, okay. Cigarettes you light up. I cut it here. Light up. Light up. Light up. Okay, all right. Okay, so I've already said this. You can always turn on the acoustic feedback. So whenever you select this clip or the segment, it will play that audio for you. So either if I click on it, right, or click on it, or even if I use my keyboard. Okay, cool. So the goal here, right, when we want to do pitch correction is that we want the vocal to be in tune. We want it to be a little bit more accurate in the note center, but we want to keep it as natural as possible. So when a vocalist sing, when a real human sing, you can see it's got all these small little curves and everything. I want to preserve all that natural curves because that's actually natural, but I just want to pull it a little bit more towards the note center so it's a little bit more precise. This gives you the most natural result, okay? What we're very, very famous, right? The very famous auto-tune effect is, what it's doing is that it's straightening the vocal. So if I take, for example, all right, I take this and let's go quantize 100%. Straighten the curve 100%. So this is what you get lah. The cigarettes you light up. That is your famous auto-tune effect lah. Let's not have that. Okay. Now, Hazim's pretty good. He's pretty much very, very pitch spot on most of the time. Okay, right? The verses are a little bit shaky lah. So you can always set the quantize. Let's say I select this. I can always put this to 100%. But let's go one by one. Okay. So first note, C. Okay, it's a bit flat. Okay, C. Okay, I can always quantize it up. C. Okay, this will be a bit too sharp. So I can still play around with a lot of things, okay? I can manipulate the tilt, the curve. So I can maybe just tilt this part down. So instead of, you see, I can tilt it up, down, this side. So I get C, G, R, Uts. Okay, this one you can see it's going slightly sharp up. The cigarettes you light, the cigarettes. U, okay, down, light, up. Okay, so as you can see, my quantize, I will pull it to the note center, 100%. Okay, but usually I don't straighten the curve lah. I want to maintain the curve that way, right, to be a little bit more natural. Cigarettes you light up. Okay. Cigarettes you light up. Cigarettes you light up. Okay, that's cool, right? So let's just leave it there. So that's it, all right? So this one is ready in tune. The cigarettes you light up. Now, here there's a little bit of the vibrato there on the light up. It annoys me a little bit, okay? Because I would kind of prefer, but let's see what happens now. Let's see what happens if I straighten it, okay? I straighten it a little bit, just a little bit. Cigarettes you light up. Okay. Cigarettes you light up. A little bit more straighter. Listen in context. I personally prefer it that way because, you know, sometimes the vibrato, in the middle of a word, kan, you have a vibrato in the middle. It's a bit weird sometimes. All right. It's traditionally, usually we put vibrato at the end of the line, the note. Okay. So
Burn the skies you fight for.
okay, let's move on to the next line. Burn the skies. So same thing. Edit the VariAudio, analyze. Okay, let's go. Burn. Too sharp. Okay. The.
Is there nothing left to
Okay, here we go.
burn the skies you
Skies. All right. So there's a bit of a scoop up. Let's straighten this.
burn the skies you fight for. Burn the skies you fight for.
The U is a bit flat. Okay, let's go to the next segment. Okay, U is a bit flat.
As you
Fight for.
as you fight for.
Okay, slightly flat overall.
Eyes you fight for. Is there eyes you fight for? Is there nothing left to drown?
Okay, right. Great. Let's repeat the process.
Is there is
Is there? Okay.
there
Okay, this is actually not in the key. This is like a flat 7. There. Two.
nothing
Okay, this one, you did a bit of vibrato here. The nothing, that's okay.
nothing left
Nothing left to.
to drown.
That's fine, okay. Let's move on. Next one, left to drown. Okay, analyze. To
Drown.
drown. Da, da, da.
Drown. Drown.
That's fine actually. Just leave it like that. The drown. Okay.
Left to drown.
It's actually fine. I didn't do much. I didn't do much to it. This one I didn't touch. Because sometimes this here, when you do all these kind of ad libs, this kind of the word for that is called melisma. Okay, right? Vocal technique when they do all these kind of flowery things. Sometimes this kind of thing we leave it more natural lah. Okay, we leave it natural because that's where the feel. That's where maybe they have a bit of a bluesy kind of a bend note. We leave it naturally lah, like that. So again, always depends on what kind of style. Da 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 da. What? This is a bit too sharp. Too sharp. Slightly flat. Yeah, here. Yeah, it's a bit of a curve. Okay, better. Okay, solo it. All right, okay. So, of course, there are other things which you can also play around with lah. Okay, inside VariAudio, you can play with formants. Okay, anyone knows what formants are? Okay, formants are, all right, your vowels, the sound of your vowel, and it affects the shape of the mouth. So for that, right, for example, if you have if we shift to a higher formant value, what we're gonna get is, let's say this note, Okay, let's listen to what happens if I put 100%. It becomes a different tone. Let's shift it down 100 minus 100%. Right? So it shifts more from like the vowel sound a bit brighter, a shorter, like the throat length, or longer throat length, you see? So let's say what happens if let's put this to 0. Let's select this whole line. Let's put 100%. See, it becomes more nasal, kind of a tone, right? you can sometimes manipulate lah. So if you go minus 100% the other way, because you change the vowel sound, right? So it affects your vowel sound, okay? So these are things that you can always play with, right? And obviously you can always adjust the volume lah if you want to. For example, if this little clip here, you want it to be a little bit louder, you can always bump it up or lower, softer or lower. Okay, you can always do it that way. Usually I don't play with the volume in here. If I want to, in doing the mixing, I usually take care of that lah, or I edit it there. There are many ways of doing it. They say if I want to just play with the volume of this line, sometimes I'll just do a draw. I can draw the volume curve or something like that. There are always more than one ways to do it lah. Now, I'm obviously not gonna show you the whole thing because, like I said, this kind of work memang takes a few hours of work to do lah. I have to really sit down, focus on it, and do one by one every single line manually. Okay, so again, right? Were you aware that this happens right in post production? Right, so again, all of your favorite singers out there that you listen on the radio now, you thank the engineer who is doing all this work to make their vocal sound perfect. Okay, okay. So there's a joke that goes right. There's a joke that goes that you know, when there's a Grammy or when there's an award, you know, the kind of, oh, best vocal performance, right? You know, best vocal performance. You know, at the back inside the studio, at the behind the scenes, there's always an engineer, audio engineer there saying, there's an engineer there laughing, right? Maybe you're right. Maybe you should petition one of these days that every time the artists get the best vocal performance, the award should also go to the audio engineer who's doing the work, because this is what they're doing, man, to, you know, to edit, make their vocals sound perfect and sound good. Granted, of course, the vocalists, some vocalists and artists out there definitely are great vocalists, are good, right? But when you get to maybe some of the poppier ones, when it's not so good, not a great vocalist, okay? I know in Malaysia, we always refer to them as the BBNU. You know what BBNU stands for? That BBNU stands for Budak Baru Nak Up. Okay, when you have it's a bit of a jokingly term when we're referring to maybe new and inexperienced artists lah. So sometimes they need a little bit of help. Okay, so this is where, you know, in the post-production process, this is where inside the studio we actually help the performance a little bit lah, help to improve it. Okay, cool. Right, so this is just a little bit. I'm going to be doing all of this right back in the studio. Not today, right? Another day, I will sit down and do all that. But again, with Hazim, there's not much to do, right? It's very, very simple. When I'm dealing with some other, you know, again, like I said, more inexperienced singers, headache. Oh, really, really headache. That one, I really got to go in tune. Here, I'm not doing much. Here, I'm just kind of just pulling everything a little bit more into the tonal center, and I don't need to adjust, right? If I put this setting, I just select all. Just put quantize a bit more, just pull it a little bit closer towards the pitch. I can guarantee you it's going to sound fine. It's going to sound great. It's going to sound perfect, right? But usually, right, to be sure, to be a bit careful, I will still go through one by one lah, manually check lah. Okay, this is kind of the detailed work that we want to do, right? If as a professional, we want to do this. Okay, cool. So that is editing and pitch correction for vocals, okay? Let me just add also, you need to have good relative pitch, right? So you need to be able to sort of hear the pitching. You need to be sensitive to it lah. You need to have good relative pitch, not perfect pitch, okay? Perfect pitch not necessary. You need to have good relative pitch. So if you don't have good relative pitch, I would say that you can't really do this because you need it. You need to have good relative pitch to know how much you need to tune, how much you need to edit, how much you need to correct. If you can't, right, find someone, right, or sub it out to an engineer or someone who can do it lah, all right? But if you can, this is actually quite a, you know, it's a specialized thing. Not everyone can do it. So sometimes I actually get, you know, some projects from some producer friends of mine who maybe they recorded everything on their own. But when it comes to vocal tuning, they say, oh, I cannot trust my ears. I can't do it. JD, can you help me? So there have been times they will send just the vocal track to me and ask me to help them to tune lah. So, okay, I do it lah. So if you can do it, it's actually it's a specialized skill. Not everyone has that good relative pitch, right? If you can do it, hey, there's something you can earn money again. You can charge people, man, right? Usually, if for one song, you can say, 100 ringgit, man, $100 to do it, at least minimum. Okay, so it can be a side form of income, lah. All right, doing all this kind of editing work. So cool. That's it. All right. It's a wrap for this week. Okay, so see you next week. We're gonna go into the mixing stage for the song. Okay. Thank you, everyone, once again. Right. You have been a wonderful, wonderful audience, wonderful participants. Okay. We'll see you again next week for the next session. Bye.